The Tustin Unified School District and the city of Tustin are in a legal battle. The district sued the city, then the city countersued. David Nazar, what's the story?
Rick, the battle continues to escalate between the city of Tustin and the Tustin School Board. At issue, whether the district can continue to refurbish older schools and build new ones without having to go through the city. The city, led by Mayor Jerry Amante, says the district must comply with certain requirements. The district claims it's already doing that and does not need city permission or city permits. Tustin Mayor Jerry Amante insists that the Tustin Unified School District must get the necessary city permits for water runoff and land grading as it goes forward with its school vision. For example, over at Tustin High, as work continues to remodel and upgrade the nearly 100-year-old school. Or over here at the new Heritage School, as work continues on the former Tustin Marine Base. The disagreement between the two sides actually has nothing to do with building design or construction. The sticking point is over environmental issues.
If they had complied with what we were required to enforce for water quality runoff, if they had pulled a permit that everyone else in the city, including the city when it builds, pulled and paid their $10,000 fee, the school district would be $590,000 richer, and we'd be $350,000 richer.
Yet the district and the school board say they already adhere to the state and the federal government requirements. Why must they double and triple stamp it going through you?
They're not double and triple stamping it. This is the nonsense and noise around their claim.
And that's why the district sued the city back in February 2010 to basically keep the city off their backs. The lawsuit was a way for the district to continue building without city interference.
In order to protect ourselves and go forward, we filed a suit asking basically a judge to say the city, tell the city to stop demanding these extra things from us. We had already complied with their reviews of the engineering drawings at both locations. And since then, we've, in fact, nearly completed all of those projects.
Davis insists the city's permit request is unreasonable and unlawful. Despite those issues, he says the district and the board are excelling in the remodel and construction jobs. Amante disagrees.
They're not competent. They're not a good school board. They don't do a good job. That's why I perceive the school district as I do, the administrators and the school board. I think they're malfeasant. I think they're incapable. I think they're myopic, and they look at only the schools they care about and ignore those they don't.
Davis says Amante is still angry over the fact that Measure L was approved by Tustin voters back in 2008. That's the measure that uses property tax revenue to help fund school improvements.
They spent over $25,000 campaigning against the Measure L lawsuit, and then there was a vote, and over 60% of the voters who are within the city of Tustin voted for Measure L. It seems to me that Mr. Amante has a problem accepting the fact that he lost that election.
Is there more to this than water quality in schools and lawsuits? Is there a bigger picture here that we're all missing?
Well, it certainly is the case that there was resentment on the part of members, Jerry Amante in particular, and some of his allies.
This lawsuit is a colossal fiscal calamity. It's a train wreck for the taxpayer.
And that lawsuit filed by the board against the city is expected to finally be heard this November. The school board contends the city is acting illegally and says it has the right to continue to build and remodel until a judge renders the final decision, Rick.
You know, David, if I counted, Jerry called them malfeasant, myopic, incompetent. He really unloaded. These folks don't like each other, do they?
They don't. And here's the deal. I've been covering these stories many years now, and I said to the school board, and more importantly to Jerry, I said, look, I don't want to come out here anymore. Enough with the white noise and the semantics about the schools being fixed up and refurbished. I said, what is the issue? He said, Dave, I'm going to give it to you. Here it is. I don't like them. There is a backstory. He says the education system is broken in California, and in defense of Amante, he says, look, the system in Tustin is not working. He says many school districts are failing. These are his words, not mine. Many districts, many schools in the districts are failing. He gives them an F, and he says, why should I have voted for Measure L? Why should property tax go to improve these schools? That tax, he says, went to every school but the ones in Tustin that need to be fixed. And he really has as you heard, harsh words for the board. He says they're incompetent, they don't know what they're doing, and he says he is not going to back anything they do until they get their act together.
All right, well, speaking of another backstory, David, there's a recall that's going on. There's a group that's trying to recall Jerry Amante. Does that play into this at all?
It does to some degree, only in the sense that I asked Jerry, I said, do you think that some of this recall effort has been drummed up or trumped up by the board or the district? He really believes it has been. I went back to the district and I said, Jerry thinks that some of you folks are behind this. They laughed it off and they said he's crazy. But I do want to point out one thing. Jerry Amante did say that the teachers and the staff and the hardworking individuals in the Tustin district do Herculean work. They teach the kids. They work for low pay. They really do a great job. It is, again, the board that he's irate with.
Okay, well, thank you, David. And now, joining me for this edition of Consider This, Tustin Council Member Deborah Gavello, former OC Deputy Treasurer Keith Rodenheis, and Orange County Register columnist Brian Calle. Welcome all. And
Thank
Deborah,
you.
we have to go for you first because
So
I thought David gave a pretty good explanation of Jerry's side. Of course, he had the school board gentleman on, but now let's hear it from you. Is this just politics between the council and the school board?
Part of it is. Yeah, I definitely agree. A lot of this happened before I got elected, so there's definitely a backstory to it. But we're in this lawsuit under the guise that we're trying to protect the water. But the interesting thing is, and maybe David, if you're still here, is to talk to the Water Regional Quality Board. Nobody's talked about them, but I called them. So I'm the only one that kind of went, okay, I'm listening to both sides, and I'm listening to my city staff, and I said, you know what? I got to go find out the truth for myself, and I did. So I talked to the Regional Water Quality Board, and I don't want to butcher his name, so I have it here. I talked to Michael Adekapara. He's the Division Chief of the Regional Water Quality Board, because this is the reasons that my counterparts are saying they have to get permits because we got to protect the water. This group manages 100 cities, and I asked him, what happens? Who's liable when there's an issue with the school district in a city? And the answer is, it's not clearly defined. So here you have the group that's managing, that's doing the penalties, and it's just smoke and mirrors.
But in fact, why doesn't the school board just get the permits? Why are they making a big deal about not getting the permits?
It's a little tricky. It's not just the permits. Not the permits, it's not the amount of money, because the amount of money might be $10,000. It's not a huge amount of money. They don't want the oversight. See, what you have is they're managed by a different agency, another state agency. The Water Quality is a state agency. I'm sorry, I didn't set it up. They go through another agency. So why should they have to go through the city and another agency?
Deborah, you have been a critic on a number of occasions of Jerry Amante. In this case, is he right or wrong?
He's wrong.
He's wrong. Okay.
Completely wrong.
Keith, you're probably not quite as close to it as Deborah, but what do you make of all this?
Yeah, as a resident of Costa Mesa, I'm happy to hear that there's problems in other cities around Orange County. But it sounds like politics, local politics, is dirty, and this is about what it stands for. It's dirty politics on both sides, probably. Unfortunately, though, it's the schools and the kids that are getting the short end of the ruler in this case.
Is this just politics, Brian?
I think it's partially politics, and it's sad when it gets to a situation where you have territorial battles in a city like this. What scares me about Jerry Amante's comments is that it seems like he's almost advocating the city council micromanaging or taking over a school district, which would be a terrible idea. The fact of the matter is we're talking about taxpayer dollars. City council's elected, school board's elected autonomously, and now because they couldn't come to some agreement, they couldn't come to terms with some kind of indemnification, we have $1 million in taxpayer funds going to pay for a stupid lawsuit.
Okay. Let me switch